welcome back from on top of the wall. My name is Mason Up, and from the blood pit I give to you a Rakdos Dredge deck. What this deck's strategy is it's trying to use some very powerful removal spells in the game and trying to get a little bit of graveyard value out of this, stock up its graveyard, and hold back the opponent's creatures, get rid of the key ones, and once we start stabilizing, we start pulling some of these larger creatures out of our graveyard and start flooding the board with these huge creatures that our opponent's going to have a difficult time getting rid of, especially permanently, while we keep stocking it back up. So let's start by looking at the dredge plan for this deck. We have the 4 Faithless Lootings and the 2 Ransack the Labs, which is a strategic planning card, just black color shifted. And we're really trying to mill over just about everything and anything in our graveyard, because we have a bunch of cards with either Escape, like Mogus's favor, to pick off the small creatures, while also later in the game giving our creatures with more than 1 toughness a little power boost, so that way they can finish off our opponent faster, while we also have our flashback cards like Moan of the Unhallowed, just a one of, makes 2/2 black zombie creatures. We got the Chainer's Edict, another flashback card, which is an all-star in the format right now, and basically every black deck wants to play some Chainer's Edicts in the main. We have the Stinkweed Imps for our dredgers. They are the cards that once we've put them into our graveyard, we can dredge them back out to put more cards into our graveyard. We have a 1 of Ghastly Demise, a very strong 1 of 1 black mana, destroy target non-black creature if its toughness is less than or equal to the number of cards in our graveyard. There's going to be some cards in our graveyard. Grim Harvest is the primary thing that we want to be milling over in this deck. After we've gotten quite a collection of creatures in there, we can keep going on this long chain cycle of just returning creature cards from our graveyard to our hand, so we can end up returning our good old Gurmag Angler, or get back the Augur of Skulls, or get back any of our great creatures just to help mess with our opponent. Unfortunately, Dredge is very slow, even if you're in some good colors for aggro, extending the pain that they get from the Bloodcrypt. We have the 4 Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs, a very strong blocker if you've seen my Pauper Lands deck. For 2 mana, you get the 0/4 Wall, and when those deserts are in your graveyard, or you have one on the battlefield, you can tap this creature to deal 1 damage to target player. We can keep pinging down their life total as we're still blocking. We have an Augur of Skulls, a 2 mana 1/1 with Regenerate, normally a very good blocker, but that's not the main thing we want it for. We want it for its second ability, which gives us the ability to sacrifice it during our upkeep to make target player discard 2 cards. If we make them discard 2 cards, we get a Hymn to Torok. It's a little slower, but in the early stage of the game, Hymn to Toroking your opponent is very strong. Just a solid 2 mana discard spell is actually very powerful. That's why in some Legacy control decks, there's a 4 of Hymn to Torok. Stinkweed Imp is a great blocker, a great way to keep your opponent's creatures at bay for fear of losing their creatures and losing some value from them. For our big finishers, the cards that we really want to finish off the game, we got the Gurmag Angler and the First Sphere Gargantua. 5/4, and it costs 6 mana. We can't really reduce that cost. However, when it enters, we draw a card and we lose 1 life, so it's like a Phyrexian Rager, but much larger, and it comes with Unearth. Now, the myriad of different removal spells in the deck, the Mogus's Favor are for the small creatures. The Ghastly Demise and the Terminate are to pick off the creatures that might be able to get around our blockers, or might be a little bit too big for them, while the Chainer's Edict is there as kind of backup and to get that 2 for 1 throughout the course of the game. Raven's Crime is to pick apart a control player's hand over the course of a game by taking our extra lands and throwing them away, making our opponent discard cards in exchange for our lands. Okay, now on to our mana base. We are a deserts mana base, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to take advantage of the Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs ability and turn that on as soon as possible. So we have the desert, that cycle. We don't really need red mana too much, and we already have plenty of black mana already, so I wanted to include these deserts of the Fervent more than the Glorified. The 4 regular deserts still count as deserts, and they're able to actually ping an attacking creature. So in combination with Mogus's Favor, we can actually reduce a creature's toughness down by 1, so a 2 toughness creature becomes a 1 toughness, and it can't attack if there's a desert in play because we will kill it, giving us a 0 for 1. Aside from that, we're going to need some fixing. So we got the 4 Bloodfell Caves, and we don't really need too many red sources, so we're going with the 5 Black Swamps, And we're going with 4 Rakdos Carniums, so that way we might be able to pick up these cycling lands later, or reuse our Bojuka Bog's exile ability to fight opponents' graveyards. Now for the sideboard, the things we're afraid of, we don't really like the going wide strategies. We really don't like that. So we're getting rid of the elves and the tokens, and we have Echoing Decay as a backup that also works rather well against them. This one works better against the Stompy decks, so it has that dual feature where it's not just good against the tokens and not just good against Stompy. It's rather good against both. We have Neil Spellbomb as another third way of messing with our opponent's graveyard. Good for Tron and some of the blue-black Delver matchups. Also the some of the times the Pestilence, sometimes the Tortured Existence decks. We have 3 Pyroblast and 3 Duress for control matchups. The Duress also works rather well against burn decks, because if you can end up getting rid of the one Curse of the Pierced Heart out of their hand, or picking out the one Lightning Bolt that they really shouldn't have, they don't need it. And we have the 2 Cartouche of Ambitions that actually can shrink down our opponent's creatures in the mid-range matchups, or gain us some nice life in the aggro and burn matchups. We have the 2 Shenanigans for the affinity matchups. Dredge it back to our hand, refilling our graveyard, and blowing up another one of their lands. Perfectly fine, completely fine. Atog doesn't need those lands as much as we need them in the graveyard. It's a very fair deal. Let me know what you thought about this deck down in the comments below. And in the description, there is the deck list, a link to it on tapout.net that should take you right to it, where you can see the deck and you can see the maybe board that I created underneath the deck and see all the different cards that I thought about adding that might be good but not quite right for this meta. Let me know what you would do with this deck in the comments below, and let me know what you want to see next time. Thank you for watching, and I will be back for gameplay at 4 o'clock today. Coming in for that face touch. Till then.